think there's going to be more of this morning talk. I get up early. I'm one of the earliest people always in the houses that I get up, unless I'm traveling and unless there's a disruption of sleep. So let's go ahead and talk about that. I'm going to talk about Gaia Thrift, but everybody asks me about sleep. I'm a good sleeper. Actually, I can teach techniques to do so. I've always been a good sleeper, and I have two methods about sleeping. One, I sleep usually 8 hours, sometimes a little less. I'm not one of the hyper people. There's only a very small percentage of people who can actually function on 6 hours sleep. I used to believe I was one of them. And in my young adult life, up until my 30s, I was somebody who could live on 6 hours sleep, or at least I believed I did. I was functional. And sometimes even more than functional. But now, 8 hours sleep, I sleep 8 hours. Pretty straightforward. Sometimes I take naps. Sometimes I do that. But I can fall asleep within 5 minutes. It has bugged all the people I've ever slept with. They're like, oh, we want to talk. We want to do this. We want to do that. And I just go, I go to bed. I go to sleep. And one of the biggest parts of that technique, really quick, is I try not to bring my cell phone into the bedroom. I have only one very quiet clock. I sleep in darkness, and I'm a bit of a hamster. I like to sleep in very confined spaces. So childhood trauma. There he goes. But we're going to talk about Gaia Thrift this morning. And Gaia Thrift is an idea. Gaia is first, as we know, the mother goddess, and theogenesis, which I'm a part of. I love that idea concept of doing what better by the earth. And I don't believe a lot in the overpopulation theory. I do believe in the overconsumption theory. That we make products to consume simply for the sake of selling new product to the market to keep our capitalistic system going. So do the communists, so do the socialists. Remember, I don't believe in a capitalistic society. We have a capitalistic culture on top of what we would call an industrial society. Industrialism, the machine and the mechanism of industrialism, continues to expand in the world. It's egregore, is very powerful, very useful, but very much about consuming resources to produce products. That's what it is. And whether it is for a communist society or a capitalist society or a socialist society or for whatever human society, and as we extend it to the animal societies, we believe in creating products from machinery that continues to expand and grow. This is just an example of it. So, industrialism is a very important part of our society. And with it, we produce a lot of goods that have value. And that value really has two forms. One, is it useful to us? And two, does it bring us status? So the first one is useful. We want pots and pans and stoves and all of the things to fill our basic needs. And that's great. I mean, and we do that all the time. We used to make refrigerators that last a long time. Then we have this idea of status. And that's where we get into a little bit of where Gaia Thrift works. Okay. Gaia Thrift works is the idea that we want better goods. We want better goods. We're constantly striving for better goods. What do I mean? If you're wearing, you see it. This is I'm going to build a better studio for this. Then I'm back. Tommy Hilfiger shirt. Okay. Um, it's this higher status. Why? Because we put a name on it. It's kind of got this beautiful embroidered name on it, right? And then it's just a white shirt. I love white shirts. I love this style of long T-shirts. And so I picked it up at the thrift store for probably $2 to $3. But people spent originally for this $25 to $30, and it's perfectly white, perfectly clean. And at some point they said, "Oh, I don't want it anymore." So they threw away that value, and instead they donated it to one of the services. How does thrift work? If you really want to know, it's really simple. So thrift works on two ideas. Remember, all thrifts have to be almost all run by a not-for-profit. I'm starting mine as a sole proprietorship, and I'm going to take on those tax consequences for right now, and I'm going to move it into a not-for-profit that are going to benefit a larger number of people. And it has two functions as a not-for-profit. If you're a 501c3 profit, and if you've got a 501c3 and want to be a part of Gaia Thrift, contact me. I can help you. And what happens is those guys collect materials on behalf of various organizations. In Chicago, we have the American Veterans. We have Salvation Army who does collections. We have, but these are more important. The American Veterans, Junior Diabetes has their trucks around. They have beautiful trucks. They have that on those 18-foot trucks, 19-foot trucks. And they go into neighborhoods or into places to collect goods. People sometimes call them, they sometimes give them money, but they come in and call them or they pick it up. And they fill this truck full of materials. And because they're a 501c3, they can write donations of goods tickets for people. This is very important for very high end earners who want to take a charity trust. Okay, who want to take a donation against charity, so they write them a receipt, and they can write them for the value of the goods, whatever the value of the goods are. So that's what the value. If you have a 501c3, thrift stores are like your best friend if you have ability or people who like to sell. I love to sell. Let me be honest. I am a terrible administrator. I really am always looking for better administrators who will help me, because I'm weak on that aspect, and I really like more dynamic sales. I like to be involved in sales. I love to be involved with that. And now I'm making that transition, as you know. As I've cleared up my calendar, I'm going to do Pagan World. And how does it be financed? Well, there's a lot of ways to finance things, memberships, other things, sponsorships and things like that. But thrift is an interesting one. So you go to these, they full of truckfuls, Junior, but oftentimes they don't have their own thrift store or they have other thrift stores. In Chicago, we have this chain called Vintage Sales. I mean, they got 24, 25, 26 shops now. I remember when they were very small in my youth, and they sell books. That's where I got a lot of my books that I resell. And people dump things of value that they don't know has a value. So you got this truck now. It comes up to the thrift store, and the thrift store pays a certain amount of money per truck. And some of this is actually bidded out between these stores. And then everybody dumps it, they sort it, and then they sell it. And there's a lot of value in that. So Gaia Thrift has that value. And also we can buy liquidation goods. There's a lot of ways to fuel that machine. And then you turn around and sell it to people who could utilize that value. Yes. That's it. You have people who sell that value. So you go to the thrift store and you find something for $10 or $5. And let me tell you, Chicago has some of the cheapest thrift stores out there. They actually move in such volumes. This is very important. They move in such volumes. They have to keep the prices lower because they have to turn that store over because there's a constant flow of used goods that people don't want to trash. So there's constantly doing it. And Chicago is a big enough city and has enough of people who are interested in increasing their status with clothing or just need clothing, and they're always looking for things to wear. And so some of it's good, some of it's through it. I've bought beautiful suits. I've gotten leather jackets. I got my daughter once a rabbit jacket when she was younger. She had a beautiful, beautiful rabbit jacket. It was probably worth about $300. We bought it for like $20. So there's this tremendous discount because what you give the 501c3 certificate to those people who give you the goods does not mean you are designated or required to sell it to the market for that. You're allowed to do so. And the government, for those not-for-profits, allows that to be claimed against the taxes and reduces more wealthy people's taxes. And the government takes the losses and advantage of the goods because as a thrift, you just have to charge sales tax. There's a lot of other things you don't have to do. And it allows you to take on volunteers, allows you to pay people. It allows you to run a business for people. And so now you're exchanging goods. Why is this important? Because fashion clothing is like the worst thing for our environment. People don't know. Clothing is like the worst thing for our environment. The creation of clothing to the disposal of clothing, it takes a long time to deteriorate. Sometimes it's made out of polyesters. There's all sorts of different reasons. And it takes a long time to deteriorate in landfills, if ever. They will be 1,000 years from now picking from our landfills. Oh, my God. If archaeologists survive and we do so, we're going to see people who are going to go into these 1,000 years from now, 500 years from now, 5,000 years from now, just and when, if we're out in space, they go, oh, yeah, we found another landfill from the Americas. It's like 3-mile long mine. What? Yeah, there are landfills in the world today, in the United States, that represent 3 miles long. That's the longest landfill in America. Yeah, down in Texas. And they kept filling it. It's just like 3 square miles. And they will dig in and they'll get stuff out. But today, the way that you can help people is by not only donating goods, which helps that organization, if they can sell it. And it also helps you not feel as guilty about selling goods and by not throwing away stuff. So now you've donated. With the recent Rev Don, we donated 52 boxes of books. bags and bags of clothing, all sorts of materials to kind of give, to allow it. And instead of throwing it in the landfill or throwing it in the garbage, it was able then to be used by other people. So Gaia Thrift represents one of the best ways for me to make a living, because I'll never make a money living from Pagan Worlds. Oh my gosh, I didn't make a living from witch school. I didn't make a living from a lot of these jobs, and I even started witch school. So as we're going to celebrate on Monday, the 22nd anniversary, I paid for a lot of the early witch school employees, the programming, and the systems by eBay, by flipping books, flipping games, flipping all of this. Probably as much over a 3-year period as $100,000 worth of materials. And that paid for the programmers. That paid for the writers. I mean, it paid for Don's living. It paid for a lot of people's living expenses. It wasn't a great living, but we were able to manage to get enough goods. Plus, while Witch School was developing, we were able to buy the computers, buy everything what we needed that was in Hoopston. And we did that through thrift. So Gaia Thrift is the idea that we can, as a community, earn money by running thrift operations. What is a thrift operation? The reselling of goods at a reduced value that may be new or used but are unwanted by the owners. They've bought them, they paid for them from the retail consumption system, and have now entered into the stream of secondary markets. Some people call these collectibles. That's what a collectible is. It's a secondary market for things. And certainly one of the things you get out of thrift is the collectibles. I have a bunch of Star Wars toys, not worth very much. 1998. I have all sorts of little toys I picked up. Just because it's old or famous doesn't make it valuable. In fact, some of the most obscure things are most valuable. Tin toys from the 1930s, the 1940s. Coins. Oh my gosh, do not throw out your wheat pennies. Those are becoming valuable, and they're beginning to escalate in price. And because we're constantly expanding our ability to do collectibles, there's a lot of wealth in our society. Things that are valuable today will become more valuable or worse. Sometimes they become valuable and drop. Today, Barbies, if you've got Barbies in your house and you don't want them, sell them. Because Barbie is now escalating to maximum Barbie collectible prices because of the movie, which is now made fantastic. If people know people now have a new nostalgia for it. The movie's kind of accentuating it. So it means the price of Barbies is going up. Not all Barbies, and in certain conditions and certain prices. But even the most humble Barbie is going to become more valuable. Instead of selling it for 50 cents, you're going to see people try to sell them for $2 or $3. And that's the other side of thrift. Thrift takes a lot of different incremental prices to advance. So let us talk about the next part of the thrift. Let me talk to you about where real money is going to be. And it's already beginning to. And that is in occult collectibles. First editions of early books, $20, $30, $50, $100 now, easy. Especially if they're out of print. I have a bunch of books that I'm selling very cheaply right now. One of the very first things is the Old Eschaton books of a publisher by the name of Brenda Tripp, who really worked hard to bring high quality, high attitude books. And ultimately, he failed, and I ended up buying the entire set of what he had left. And I still have cases now, 20 years later, 20, 30 years later. Future Magic by Phil Farber, which is, one of the more valuable ones. Candle Magic by Jane Auer. I have Spellcraft, which was a really early book that predates a little bit, or is involved in the same area as Silver Raven for teenagers. It's a very unique book. Once they're gone, they're gone. And these are books that are between 1,000 and 2,000 prints. So when they're gone for a minute, but they will continue to have value in the market. Our book collections are the biggest asset. So you're seeing that. The other thing is, have you ever heard of American folk art? Back in the day, these were things people made at home or for festivals or for various ideas. And one of those great ideas of it was that they would, create and sell it. And some of it was very, very, very good, and some of it was probably not very good. And over time, these things began to disappear from the market because, they aged out. People go, oh, why do I want that? You see a big reduction probably in the 50s and 60s that we built into these modern homes. And this is the moment, I think, the 60s are really the moment where everything before it got wiped out. I mean, a lot of people didn't want the antique stoves. They didn't want counters. They didn't want their old family heirlooms. And today, in the 2023s, we see this from the baby boomer generation trying to give it to the millennials and Zers. And that is the idea of pottery, the dishware, china, all of that. China, it used to be valuable in the 60s and 70s, 80s, is now becoming reducingly more and more trash goods. What that means is that there's less and less of it. And at some point in the future, say in the 50s, people are going to want that. And whatever's left is going to be much more expensive. That's how all of this works. So, pagan crafts, wands, all those things we're making, staves, are going to go in value. As our community increases in size, it's going to go up in value. And things that were made by people who have passed away or even done, if you can build a pedigree, um, the museums, like Buckle Museums, can become one day a very valuable place. Uh, it'll take generations. It's generations for that, but it will eventually become, and that's what pagan folk art does. Anything we're making, wands we're making, Don Hawk, I think it's Don Hawk. No, no. Don Hawk is my good friend. He does commentary on us, becoming one of the voices of the pagan world. And that in this process, we're going to see more items. We see, wands being made. Oberon made a staff that I'm handling for him. Yes, I'm carrying around protecting his staff because, in and of itself, probably people would pay $10, $20, $30 at a festival. But now that we know that he made it personally, that we can prove that with a pedigree, that we're going to do it. And blockchain and other systems are going to make that more valuable. So we're now going to invest into our own community by selling not only resell goods from the mainstream, so like this t-shirt and clothing, so that we can dress our people at a much lesser cost. We're going to make sure that we have goods for our people at a much lesser cost. And this can happen in every city, any city. This can be any franchise. And we're going to use Poshmark. We're going to use eBay. We're going to use a lot of different systems in place to sell it. Right now, today, I'm going to be selling off some CDs I received. Thank you, Susan. Some more books that Don has. And we're going to be selling them off to make rent. Let's be honest, rent and food and all of that. So I'm going to be basically building our basic needs from Gaia Thrift and also paying the bills for Pagan World, because Pagan World is now a new product and it's going to be like an infant. As I'm trying to reach 1 million pagans, it's going to be hungry for cash, hungry for attention, hungry for people. It's going to be. It's just the way that it is. All businesses are like tiny infants. And while it is a not-for-profit, it's a medium not-for-profit. It's going to take some time. And how am I going to do it? Gaia Thrift. Gaia Thrift is my favorite. I love thrifting. I love that energy. And so it works. So when you donate goods, if you have a certain level and you're donating to a 501c3 or own a 501c that wants to earn extra cash, talk to me, because Gaia Thrift is going to be there. And I suspect that I'm going to need $1 million over the next 5 years for the Pagan World Project to reach 1 million pagans and to kind of create a connected marketplace that will actually work for everybody. Not, we want to be unified and all together, and you just want to command the pagan. Well, no, gosh, no. I just left my church for that. So there it is. Gaia Thrift, you'll be seeing more about it. But how does it work? At the end of the day, you take donated or personal goods and you sell them to the marketplace that wants it. And then you take a small amount of compensation for that, and then you can utilize it for any purpose that you want. After taxes, after regulation, after all those things, but you got a little extra cash. Everybody in their house has a certain amount. I bet you almost everyone has $1,000 worth of goods around the house that they no longer need. And so how do I finance things? I help finance we finance the entire move for Don Lewis, primarily, not completely. There were wonderful people who donated money and gave him Don money and also bought some of his services. But the majority of the money was thrifting his family jewelry that he had been hanging on to for over 20 years, going into his lockers and moving those books, moving items. So this was an answer to our elder care situation. And that was very meaningful to a lot of people. So Gaia Thrift is on the air. We're going to do more of it. I want to thank everybody who's watched this and will watch it in the future. Check out the Pagan World Connections. We want to connect 1 million pagans and to see what would happen to our community if we can get 1 million pagans talking to each other in a controlled network. And that's what we're doing. And so Gaia Thrift is my way of financing it. So you'll see more product here today. I'm going to probably start to list some product that I've got, some books that I've got, some music I've gotten. So we're going to see how it goes. I'm going to list it off on my front page first, and I'm going to start developing those systems. Gaia Thrift. Because we need to put 1 million pagans together. It's going to take work. Blessed be, and I hope you buy some of the items we have.